All right, the argument to kill all arguments. Who is the best player ever to play the game of basketball? Is it Michael Jordan or is it LeBron James? Well, my answer is no one. No one. There's only the best player in each era. It is impossible to compare players from different eras. When I'm talking about the best players of all time, whenever anybody asks me, I never mention Wilt Chamberlain. Why? Because from looking at me, you can obviously see I'm not around from that time. And two, the level of competition Wilt Chamberlain played with, he was playing against guys my height. So, I mean, you can score 100 points if you're 10 feet taller than everybody else. So there's no possible way you could compare that. Now, to compare Michael Jordan and LeBron James, I mean, defense was completely different with LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Defense was completely different. I mean, there was hand checking with Michael Jordan. It was like playing football out there. It was like people were punching, swinging, pushing each other. Referees were just turning a blind eye to that. In today's NBA, if you put a little finger in someone's cheek, you would get a flagrant. It is not comparable to compare Michael Jordan and LeBron James. It's almost like they were playing different sports. They're in different eras. So they take what they can get in those eras. So it's like, for example, it's very hard to compare how James Harden would play if he played in the 90s, because his whole game is predicated on finding loopholes in the current NBA rulebook. If he played in the 90s with hand checking, there's no possible way he could play like the way he's playing right now. Same could be said for Steph Curry. The way he's pulling up from 50, 60 feet out is because you can't really touch him. So if he was to try that in back then in the NBA, someone would probably give him an elbow and they'll just get one personal foul. He can't do that in the NBA from back then. Sure, he will find ways. Sure, I think he'll still be a lights out three-point shooter. Sure, I still think he'll be the best three-point shooter of all time. But the way they play is to take advantage of the current NBA rulebook. So there's no way to compare players of today's NBA from players in the past. So if you were to put Michael Jordan in this era, well, Michael Jordan, like I made the example with James Harden, if James Harden can average 35 a game, I believe Michael Jordan could average 40 with the lack of defensive intensity you have in today's NBA. If you were watching The Last Dance, you would notice how the low final scores were, like in the 70s and the 80s. Nowadays, you see scores in the 130s. If Michael Jordan was in today's NBA, he can easily average 40 a game with no hand checking. So you can say, oh, that makes Michael Jordan the best player in the NBA. Well, I won't agree with you on that, because if you were to take LeBron James from today's NBA and bring him back to the 90s, you'll probably see a much bulkier, bigger LeBron James. You'll probably see what you expect LeBron James, the tight end, would be in the 90s NBA. And all that punishment that the Detroit Pistons dished out to Michael Jordan way back when, LeBron James, he would take that punishment and he will dish it right out. You can make the argument like, oh, LeBron James always cries and whines all the time every time he gets fouled. It's because he's paid to play the game. And when you're paid to play the game, you take every single advantage that you can get. If you have to cry and whine just to get a call to get your advantage, he's going to take it. He is a competitor. And for his mindset, that's the way you can compete, to get every single advantage possible. So to say that LeBron James is not tough because of that is ridiculous. If LeBron James was in the past, he'll be a much bigger player, and he'll probably dish out even more pain and dish out even more punishment with that. And with hand checking, he'll probably be a more consistent defender, and he probably won't have to take place off on defense like he does in today's NBA, at least right now with the Lakers, because he can hand check, so he doesn't have to completely keep up with them. He can use his strength to nullify the offensive player. So there is no way you really could compare If you want to compare Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson, you can compare that because they played around the same era. If you want to compare LeBron James to Kobe, you can compare that because they played in the same era. But likewise, when I compare Kobe, younger Kobe to Michael Jordan, they played, well, Jordan and Kobe played towards the end of Jordan's career and the beginning of Kobe's career, so you can somewhat compare that. But there is no possible way you can compare Jordan and LeBron James. That argument, there is like apples and oranges. Like, you're going to find your pros and you're going to find your cons. There is no definitive way to say there's the best player in that era. So I say the best player of the modern era right now is LeBron James. The best player in the 90s and the late 80s is Michael Jordan. The best player in the early to mid 80s is Magic Johnson. So that is my answer on who the best player of all time is. No best player of all time, just the best player in each era.